All right, we're live. Thank you very much for joining me today, Andrew. So I want
Thank
to
you very
start.
much for having me.
So I want to start this off with a question that I know is going to be up your alley, right? Because I know you're an avid reader.
Yes.
Currently, what are you reading?
So at the moment, I'm reading two books. One of them it's actually over there. It's called Designing the Mind, Psychotecture. So the premise of it is essentially like looking at your mind as if it is software that you can program, and how you can shape the thoughts and beliefs that you have, and how that then manifests into the actions that you take and then shapes the world around you. So that's kind of been the theme of a lot of the books that I've been reading as of late. And then what's the other one? I'm doing another one at the moment. Oh, it's Psycho-Cybernetics. So as you can imagine, it's the exact same thing. But I wish I got to that one sooner. I feel like a lot of the books that I've read kind of refer to that one. So it seems like that's kind of the root of a lot of the other ones downstream. So I wish I had found. I don't know why I didn't get to that one sooner. I think it's because it has a weird name, but that seems to be the one that is most influential. It's like a plastic surgeon who noticed that when he was doing surgery on people, that it was changing like their whole perception of themselves. But then there was occasionally some people who wouldn't, like, they would have a surgery but still see themselves in the previous way that they had. Say they had like a big nose and they wanted to change their big nose, and their big nose was stopping them from getting into social situations, and it was affecting their career and affecting their relationships and blah 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 blah. But for most people, they get the surgery and then their whole identity changes and the whole manifestation of their world around them changes and so on. But for some people, they would still view themselves as having a massive nose, and they would not change anything in how they interacted with other people, and they were still limited in their career. And he was exploring that. He was saying how he was fascinated and started pulling on that thread, and led to this idea of self-image and the perception that we have of ourselves, how that correlates and affects everything else downstream. So yeah, that's big. What I'm learning
Yeah.
and going through at the moment is like our mind, how we can change what's going on up here to affect everything else downstream. Which has actually go you. So this is something that I've been trying to contextualize for a while. That how I can express that or communicate that idea, because I think it's been the natural progression of, say, my like powerlifting journey, but then also my coaching journey, where I started powerlifting coaching, and I'm going on a tangent off the bat. I
Over
started
it.
powerlifting.
Over
See,
it.
you can tell this has been on my mind. I've just been looking for a medium to express this idea. So I started powerlifting coaching because that's what I was doing at the time when I started powerlifting real young, and I wanted to help other people get strong. And then through my journey, I started realizing how important nutrition was. And then I decided, okay, let me do a qualification in nutrition and let me get certified as a nutrition coach so that I can then use what I found to be so beneficial and communicate that and help other people experience the same thing. And then through the nutrition coaching, that opened me up to the world of like behavioral psychology. Because I'm sure you would agree, for the most part, I'm sure you can go down a rabbit hole and make it infinitely complex if you wanted to. But the technical knowledge to see great results with training and nutrition is relatively straightforward. Most people usually know what they have to do or what they should be doing. Um, but the difficult part is dealing with people. Like, people are complex and their lives are complex, and they have competing desires and ambivalence towards like what they want to act on. So it's working through that, working with people. So then opened up this whole realm of behavioral psychology and led me down this avenue of the psychology books, because that kind of feels like, at least for me anyway, that feels like the tap that everything else downstream is affected by. So if you want to enact changes in your life, but you have this belief of yourself that you are bad at, or like you've really low self-esteem, self-efficacy, you can't follow through on things, you've tried to diet before but you can't do it, until you would start addressing that belief, and I suppose you can start addressing the belief through actions, that's gonna end up limiting you. So anyway, fascinating. You can tell all these ideas have been stewing up here. I just need somewhere where I can start getting them out.
Let them out. Well, I do think they are incredibly important things for coaches to learn about. Like, obviously, I did see that you did precision nutrition, right? So you would have got a lot of the starting into behavioral kind of science through that. Because when I started doing their course, I was under the illusion that I was gonna like just learn more intricacies about like nutrition science. But it was actually the behavioral component that actually changed my coaching approach way more. Because yeah, I would absolutely agree. I do think there is just a certain amount of knowledge that you would need to be really efficient with nutrition, like actual nutrition, like data, or like actual nutrition strategies. But so much of it comes down to how you are engaging with your client and how you are getting them to do, like, is it like essentially trying to manipulate them to do the things that they want to do. That's essentially what it comes down to. Like, you're trying, like,
Yeah.
they know what they want to do. They know what
Yeah.
they want to do. They don't know how to do it, and it's often just their brains get in the way of it. Like, there's no shortage of. Most people know that protein's good for them. Most people know they should be probably eating fruits and vegetables, but there's something in them that stops them from doing it consistently.
Yeah.
And obviously, there's
There's some block, there's some
yeah,
pattern.
yeah. There's like, it could be their thoughts, beliefs about it. It could be they're limited. They have a limited skill set in regards to how to prepare food, or like maybe they were scarred by being forced to eat force feed vegetables or something like that when they were younger, and they just have this idea of like boring, bland things that can never be nice. It could be the environment that they're in. One thing I definitely notice more, like the more often I come back to Ireland, I can see why it's actually so hard for people to maintain a good body shape there. Number one, it's the weather's fucking miserable all the time. So if you're covered up all the time, you probably don't really care that much if you have like an extra little bit of fluff in your eye. But the environment of actually going into the supermarket and everything seems unreal. Like, I was home for like a week last week, and I was going to Tesco, and I was like spending so much longer in the supermarket because I hadn't seen all this stuff in ages. And I was like, oh my god, like, they've hot honey now, they've different types of Rice Krispie treats and whatever it may be. Like just new shit that, like, I probably wouldn't buy, but somebody else might buy. Somebody else will fall to the marketing.
Oh, the marketing is like so overpowered, man. It's like multi-million, billion probably dollar industry to make sure it's as eye-catching as possible. Sometimes it's just nice looking at it.
Yeah,
It makes you want it. And
yeah.
it's delicious. That's one of the other problems is we all know it's delicious.
And then as well, of course, I definitely
Yeah,
see there's like
that's
more
that's
like, I was gonna say, I definitely see there's more like cookie companies and donut companies and all these different companies that are popping up as well, which are just the Instagram tree pages, which you're just like, I don't know, like it's not as appetizing,
yeah.
trying to think about how to prepare my vegetables in a nice way.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's something I'm fascinated by, particularly people after bodybuilding shows. It seems like there is this. Why is that such a cliche that people after bodybuilding shows always get these massive donuts and cookies? Like, you'd be the most educated man that I could ask about this. Every single piece of bodybuilding content I've seen, they have these massive cookies. Where do they even get these things from? They always have these massive cookies after.
So there does seem to be like a little kind of small micro industry, you could say, within like bodybuilding kind of spheres, where you'll have a bodybuilder who will
Yeah,
all of a sudden get into baking or cooking, and they'll start up these like mini kind of tree companies. And I always see them at bodybuilding shows. Like, they'll have like a stand at like the shows. Like, we actually have a few in the freezer because Emma was putting out to bodybuilding shows with her clients, and they just have like a cookie stand outside of the
yeah.
venue. And Emma said like her client just come off stage. They went out to meet up in like the kind of main foyer, and some girl had just come off stage, right? Bikini girl. She got 3 of these cookies that are like probably 1,000 calories a piece. 3 cookies, like, pretty much inhaled them, like within like 5 minutes.
Oh
Just
my
gone.
man,
And
it's
I had one
preying
of
on
these
the
cookies
weak.
and I felt
It's preying
sick.
on the weak. You're the most vulnerable.
Yeah,
You're the most
yeah.
susceptible. I'd say you're just nuking your guts doing that.
But what is it? I guess I think it's because, like, when you're at the tail end of bodybuilding prep, your food choices do get so limited, and it's more so
Hmm.
because it just makes your life a lot easier if you do limit your food choices at that particular time. Because if you have less diet variety at that point in time, you have less stimulation of food reward, makes it easier to stick to the goal. But then all of the stuff you have been kind of staying away from, it just becomes more appealing. It's like the big red button. It's like a lot, like all you can think about. Then, of course, what happens is people know that the end is coming up. So, like, oh, I can't wait to have these foods that I'm missing out on. And sometimes that can even just be like random things. Like, towards the end of my prep, right, I was loving a bagel with, the butter fry light. So having fry light on a bagel, and
Yeah,
like, that was like amazing. It tastes unreal to me. So, like, even just having a bagel with butter
that
at the
is
end
the
of the
treat.
prep. Yeah, like it was just like, oh my God. So to see all these other things, you start Googling places that you want to go for food. What happens? Social media algorithm just nukes you all these places.
Start picking that up.
Yeah. And then of
Yeah.
course your body wants all the calories. So
Yeah.
what happens?
That's
You cave.
Yeah. That's one of the things I'm super interested in. And you're man, okay, I'm gonna hijack your podcast. I'm gonna be interviewing you in this fucking thing. I'm gonna be picking your brains. This is something that I'm super interested in because I have kicked around the idea of doing a show, but from hearing like other people talk about it, I'm scared to get into that state. I'm scared to get to the state where I'm like so depleted that like it's like this force beyond yourself. Doesn't matter how many positive thoughts you've got up here. Like physiologically, you are in a state that is just like dying for food. And then I feel the urge or the temptation or the difficulty that I would have post show. I feel like I always hear post show is the most difficult part. I'm almost too scared of post show to do a show.
Yeah, I understand that sentiment. I guess look, I can only speak from my experience here because I know everybody's experience is slightly different, but I found post show challenging in different ways rather than the food. So I think one of the kind of things that stood to me is I waited so long to compete, right? So by the time I'd gotten on stage, I'd done multiple diets of getting myself really, really lean, and I went through essentially those post show scenarios by myself. I had like the scenarios of finishing the diet, no longer have that goal I was working towards, essentially becoming a binge eater, like undiagnosed. I wouldn't even call it like, uncontrolled binge. It was just a case of I go out the weekend and I decide, you know what, I'm gonna have a whole box of Cocoa Pops and I'm gonna have a few kind of cream cakes and all this kind of shit, right? So I'd already went through all that. I think to a degree, kind of I got it in my system, and then I think by the time I was actually doing my bodybuilding prep, I didn't really have any foods within my diet that were like over stimulating from a food reward perspective. So my food palette had changed as such, right? By the time it was prep, and then when it did come to prep, again post show, as I said, the thing I want is like a bagel with butter, or I want to use like real peanut butter versus powder peanut butter, or I want to have more potatoes with my dinner, have more rice, or like just like use like actual normal sauces versus sugar free sauces or real like water based sauces. So it was those kind of things for me. I think the thing that I struggled most with was just seeing my body change from being like, amazingly lean to like when you put the body fat on initially, stores horribly. Like your arms and legs, like for me at least, remain really,
Yeah.
really muscular. But your midsection,
Weird torso.
your midsection, it kind of looks like an alien physique, Like you got this real like soft looking
No!
belly.
Yeah.
So that part was definitely difficult. Um,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah,
like the
that
approach.
I
Yeah,
would be so apprehensive about that. And then you have this new baseline that you're judging yourself off. So anything that has more body fat than that is fat. Like you feel like you're soft. You feel like you're losing
mm,
it. How the hell do you manage that? Like psychologically? That's probably I'd say that's probably one of the things I'm most worried about. And I'm even somewhat worried a little bit about that with the cut that I am doing / have done, where I'm setting a new baseline for myself that psychologically I may not want to depart from, but I know I will have to depart from in order to see boosts in training performance again and continue to build more muscle and so on and so forth. How do you detach from that physique that you had?
yeah. To be honest, man, I think it's just shifting your perspective and shifting like what your goal is, and like also trying to remind yourself like why you kind of do any of this stuff in the first place. So like for me, my goal is never really to be like as lean as possible, right? Because being as lean as possible, especially for stage like scenario, it's only good for that thing. It's only good for like for everything else. It sucks, and you can almost kind of like talk yourself into like, okay, what is this current physique bring me? Okay, it's bring me this thing, but what else is it? What's it not bring me? Okay, I have to be way more anal about my nutrition, overthinking going out for food at the weekend or going out for a night out with my mates. Um, uh, maybe my energy's not good, my sleep's not as good, I'm not as strong as I am in the gym. Like that's one of the reasons why I like powerlifting, right? Like I like the feeling of like, and you could probably relate to this, right? Going into the gym and like you're loading up like just like one of your normal working sets. It's just a casual Tuesday, and everybody's like, what the, you see how much weight he has in that bar? You know? So for me, like like being able to shift to, okay, I'm doing stage now, but now I want to get strong again and get back into powerlifting. Like that for me was just like that's like the next goal. And then you're like, okay, well, this shredded physique here, that's good for bodybuilding, but anybody realistically, right? If they have their mind right, can get shredded. How many people can get to a top level of strength?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
something that takes a lot of fucking
I,
work, you know?
I like that. I like that. Like, yeah, I can imagine having the ability to shift between the sports or shift between like the focus or the emphasis that gives you something to work towards. Because if you were just considering yourself the identity of a bodybuilder when you're, well, obviously you can still accept it, but when you're drifting away from that shredded physique, I think a lot of people would perhaps have the expectation or perception of a bodybuilder always being lean and being able to have that. Whereas when you feel like you're that bit softer, you're carrying a bit more fluff, it's drifting away from that identity that gets so much like praise and external validation. Whereas being able to get that praise almost from somewhere else, or being able to target something else where you can see that success, I can
Mm.
imagine that is that would help.
Yeah, I think as well, like one thing, and you're definitely gonna notice this as you start to put on weight again, right? As good as you look right now, as good as you think you look, if you put on 5 kilos right now, people still say you look unreal. You know, like I would have been at like fucking peak bulk, you know, have fabs, so like fat abs, and still have like people like be like, geez, you're still looking quite lean. You fucking joking. If I stand to the side, I'm gonna block out the sun.
Yeah, yeah.
So
What
there is that element to it.
what was your stage weight across the different shows?
My first show I was 80, and then by the time I did my last show I was 78. So 78 for like probably my last 2 to 3. But my lowest weight of prep was 76. So yeah, that was like 94 kilos down to 76 was the lightest. Like it's one of those processes that you don't really realize how lean you're gonna have to get. But at the same time, it's one of these exploratory phases, I guess. And I guess like you're doing that now yourself, right? So you're kind of just like, you know, what was your heaviest weight when you're powerlifting? Yeah. So yeah, and now you are.
I'm 85 at the moment.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's a big change.
a big change. A big change. Yeah.
And
Um,
in terms of like your progression on this now, is it the aim to continue just like pushing it and seeing where things are going?
I would love to get down to like 80 or at least low 80s. So maybe 80, between 80 and 82, I would say. I would love to get down there and just see how that looks. And then from that, decide what to do from there. I was talking to Eric Helms, and he was like, yeah, to step on stage, you'd probably have to be like 75, 76 kilos. Oh my, I can't imagine that. Like 117 Andrew getting down to almost 74 kilo weight class. Bizarre. It's hard to wrap your head around, but and now I can see it. Now that I am like 85, I'm like, yeah, fuck, I probably would need to be 75 to get on stage.
Yeah, it's crazy when you actually start like thinking about the numbers of like how light, but like natural bodybuilders can be on stage. Like it's one of those things that you assume, right, that like the heavier you are, like the heavier you get in off season, the heavier you're going to be when you get down to the very low end. And then even within a weight class, the heavier you are, the better you're going to do within it. But like when I was competing, one of my shows, it was like the British finals, and I was maybe like 79, 80 kilos. The guy who won my class was 71 kilos, you know, but he just put together that made him look, he didn't look 71 kilos, right? He looked like way heavier than that. But it comes down to so much like, you know, obviously fucking bone density, fucking like, you know, the shape of your skeleton. Like so much of that is like genetically determined. And it's obviously genetically determined to a degree with like some powerlifting for sure, right? Ultimately at the end of the day, there's got to be certain bone structures that are going to support having 300 kilos in your back.
Yeah. Yeah, that them people blessed with the long arms, that long arm, short torso.
No, yeah,
Those
the
deadlifters.
Yeah, the optimal, the optimal skeleton. Um, I guess like while we're on like the topic of the kind of fat loss journey that you've been on, I guess like you mentioned you want to get down towards the kind of 80, but why? Is it just self exploration
a
or?
great a great question, and it is something that I'm asking myself now. And I did have to ask myself when I was considering doing a bodybuilding show. I think self exploration is a good way to put it. When I was so heavy, so I was on the other end of the spectrum, I was 117, I didn't enjoy it that much, if I'm being completely honest. It was not, how do I word it? Not necessarily like a means to an end, but it was for like the very, very specific purpose of I'm competing internationally and I want to place as high as possible in these competitions before the end of the junior career. So I know there is like a definitive timeline that I'm not going to be a junior anymore. So this is the likelihood that I'm going to be most competitive in this next 1 to 2 year period. So when I look back, when I'm 30 or 35 or 40 or whatever, I will want to have made like the maximum amount of progress that I could have done in that stage. And I had just found through the previous years of training that continuing to get heavier was equating to more and more weight on the bar. So I was like, fuck it. Okay. The 120s is, to be honest, a little less competitive than the 105s, at least it was at the time. And when I was 105, I was like, fuck it. I feel okay about my body composition. So I'll just keep going. Shortly after we extended past 105, we were not too happy with body composition. But I was like, okay, I've kind of committed to this now. Uh, I'm I'm seeing like the progress. I'm hitting like numbers that I never would have conceived to be possible.
Mm,
So let me just continue on this route. I know I only have 1 to 2 years left. Let me try get the most out of it that I can. But as soon as I was above like 108 into 110, and then from like between 110 and 117, I was looking at myself in training videos and in the mirror, and I couldn't even recognize myself. I was like, who the fuck is that? Because when I started powerlifting, I was like 80 kilos. So it's crazy in hindsight. It actually was such a short period that I was that heavy, but it felt like a lifetime. Every like whenever I wasn't in the gym doing like a heavy single or heavy working sets, I just felt I just didn't feel good. I didn't feel good
mm,
day to day. I was like out of breath. There's that whole joke that you're like out of breath going up the stairs. I just didn't feel I didn't feel fit. I didn't feel like an athlete. I didn't feel healthy. Obviously it was cool. Like I benched 200 and shit like that. But I didn't feel that good. So I always knew as soon as I was out of the juniors, like I was going to cut back down. Like that was always going to be the plan because I knew to close the gap between where I was coming out of the juniors and when I go into the open with the 120s. If I wanted to continue trying to close that gap, it would mean staying that big for another 3, 4, 5, 6 years, which I know just I didn't want to do. I was willing to make that sacrifice in the short term with
mm.
that time cap, but I didn't want to be that big go forward. And this ties back into what we were saying. You think the heavier you are, like the bigger you're going to be when you cut down. Cut down from 117 to 105, and I was like, I barely feel different at all. Like I feel like I still look the same. I feel like I didn't. There was not that significant. I kind of just shrunk overall. Like the midsection came in, but there was no change in like muscle separation, muscle definition, abs coming through. Very little change whatsoever, just because I had been such a high body fat percentage. So I was like, okay, I'm 105 now. I thought I was going to be diced at 105. I thought I was going to be stepping on stage, absolutely huge. And this is something that I found interesting because I was comparing to a lot of people that I would see online and some people that I would know in person. And I'm like, fuck, they're 105 and they're shredded. Some of them are even closer to 108, like 110. And they're like the same age as me. And they're fucking massive. And they're like vascular and lean and shredded six pack. Why am I like that? And
Mm.
now I'm more dubious of these people. So I was like, got to 105. I'm not where I thought I would be. So this has been an interesting learning experience. Let me keep going down and let me see what I would have to get to get to the idea that I had in my mind. So I did Euros in March this year at well, technically I was 104 the week of the comp, but I had to go as a 120 because I qualified as a 120. So I bloated back up to 106 to do the competition. And then the plan was to come back down in body weight further and to try see if the federation would bend the rules, because normally you have to compete in the weight class that you qualified in. So I was like, let me see if I can sweet talk them to let me go 105. And there were some discussions had, and they did agree to bend the rules. But by that stage, I had continued to cut down even more, and I was like 99, 98 by
Wow.
the time the
Yeah.
competition was going to be rolling around. And I was like, there's almost no point doing this. It's going to be the same situation where I'm going to be so small for the weight class, showing up to Worlds. I'll end up being in like the C or D flight or something. My numbers are continuing to kind of
Yeah.
trend down a little bit,
Downward trend.
given that it's 20 something kilos from my heaviest. So I was like, I'm just going to take a step back from Worlds and try release this pressure from myself, because I had now been in a deficit for such a significant period of time. There was maintenance like plotted in like along this, but it was kind of from October, November of 2024 through to that June, July period. So I was like, it's just the last 6 months of training has not been conducive to seeing a ton of progress. I'm a way smaller frame. Every session I'm coming in, I'm down a notch in my belt. I'm having to like change my technique, change my stance width, change my grip width, like all these sorts of things. I need to just like alleviate some of this pressure that I'm placing on myself, because it's really stressful coming into to train, knowing my numbers are going to be down. Like I'm on the defensive every session. So, and this is actually another thing I'd be interested in picking your brains about when you're doing a show. Like, at what stage would you sub out the competition lifts and so on? But I'll ask you that after. So I got to a stage, maybe like maybe even 4 months ago, where I was like, I need to just take the comp lifts out, because I'm not enjoying coming in to train. Like it's just getting quite stressful for me to come in and see my numbers being down. It's like physically taxing. It doesn't feel good doing the lifts, and I have this belief that I'll almost be equally like in the same position by the end of this deficit if I take them out now, versus if I keep banging my head against the wall in the same time and just see the numbers go down. So I can just take them out and then expect when I come back to them that it might take like 4, 6, 8 weeks to kind of get trained back into the skill component of it again. But there's no need to put myself through that torture for the next couple months, because I know that I want to continue coming down in body weight just to see what I can look like. Because someone said this to me, they're like, I didn't get into the gym to be fat and strong. And I was like, fuck, that's me. I didn't get into the gym to be fat and strong. Like I got in to be jacked and lean and sexy and all these kind of things. Like when you're 16 years old, like you're looking at these people online, like that's what you want to look like, these superheroes. And there was never really a portion in my powerlifting journey where I got to enjoy that aspect at all. I didn't get to, like, the aesthetic goals that I had initially all fell by the wayside, because it was 100% based on performance and just how much weight that I could lift. So I was like, fuck it, I've been training like coming up on a decade now. I wanted to actually feel as though I look like I lift, which an element of body dysmorphia in there, I'm sure. But I want to, like, I want to see some changes in my physique that, say, young Andrew wanted to see when he was in the gym. So I think that's like the why behind what I'm doing at the moment. I want to get down to 80 to just see like what I can push it to, see what my physique can look like, see what I'm working with under there. Because for the last 7, 8 years, I have basically just been on an upward trajectory in terms of gaining body weight and gaining body fat. Now, obviously, I've built a decent amount of muscle during that time, and it wasn't all bad. But yeah, I think now, while I'm doing it and while I've been able to take a step back from the identity of being a power lifter, I want to just, and maybe there's an element of like, whenever I do something, I want to do it well. Like I kind of want to take it to the extreme. If I'm doing powerlifting, I want to be competing internationally. I want to be on the podium. If I'm doing like this aspect of cutting down, like I want to get to a stage where my physique looks crazy. I don't want to just be like kind of lean. I want to look kind of nutty. That's like the look that I want to get to. And then this is another one of the ideas I've been kicking around about doing a bodybuilding show. If I was to do it, I would want to do it well. But I know there would be an aspect of, like, as you were saying, and anyone I've talked to who's doing bodybuilding shows, they're like, yeah, I'm probably planning to do a show in like 2027. Like, it's a long game. Like, making changes to your physique, it takes a long period of time. So if I was to commit to that, it would be like a long term commitment. It's not going to be just like a short term, oh, I'm going to do a show, do a prep. But if I was to do one, I would want to do it well, and I would want to be good at it. Like, I don't want to just rock up to a show and just like half-ass it and kind of look good. And one of the hesitations I have is about all the tattoos. So I have this full arm done, and then I have a full leg done, and I'm like, that's probably going to nerf me. Like that would definitely obscure. It's going to obscure something. Okay, you can't see the same lines and the same separation and the same cuts. So I'm like, fuck. Maybe I shot myself in the foot, and that's not the path for me. But yeah, I want to get down to a stage where at least I can look at myself and be like, whoa, that's crazy. My physique looks a way that I wanted it to look when I first started lifting. So I think that's the goal. Get down to 80 or so. But then I know it's a slippery slope as well, where I get down to 80 and then I'm like, I wonder what 78 would look like. Yeah, and then I wonder what, like, I'm down here already. I may as well dig a little more. So yeah, I know. But then I think that's when it starts to get to the stage where there's like the trade-offs. You would have to have a goal. That's when you're going through a bit of the suffering where if you don't have a compelling why, you're going to be looking at yourself in the mirror and being like, well, why would I suffer for the next 4 to 8 weeks just to look that little bit leaner? So yeah, I don't want to get to a stage where there's like significant detriment to my lifestyle or quality of life, but I want to get to a stage where I'm like, yeah, I can be proud of kind of that achievement or that transformation from where I was when I was so heavy.
Yeah, I think like obviously those motivations run deep. I think what you're saying there in regards to when you started a gym, you didn't come in with the intentions of like just being fat and strong. You know, I think like obviously I think when everybody starts a gym, right, they have like that kind of same kind of like ideal in their head of like, I want to be jacked, I want to be lean, all this kind of type of stuff. And I think some people chase that idea too hard at the expense of going through the necessary phases to create that over time. What, you're 23, 24?
24.
Yeah, so you've achieved like more in a gym in the last like number of years since you've been training since what, like 15, than most people like achieve in their entire time training in gym full stop, right? So you're still a spring chicken at the end of the day, right? But I think when you've kind of went through the kind of training process with that type of mentality of like you've had performance and training to be the most important thing for a number of years, that only kind of serves this goal really, really well, because it's things like bodybuilding and developing physique is similar to developing like, you know, your powerlifting, right? The same consistencies is required. You're just kind of more specific about exercise selection versus being like, I'm just trying to bring up these specific lifts and these being the core things. Like your calf raises and your side delts are as important now as your bench press was when you're powerlifting, right? So like it kind of allows you to kind of shift towards that mindset, but it also allows you to be okay with going through being fat and strong again, right? And I think this is like one of the biggest things that holds like so many lads back from like getting to their ideal physique is they're afraid to put on body weight. Like I was afraid for years to put on extra body weight because it took me so long to figure out how to get lean. The first time I got lean, there wasn't as much kind of information available, which makes sense. There wasn't as much information available as to how to do it. Like the first time I remember trying to diet, the guy that I used to work with in the nightclubs said to me, "Oh yeah, if you want to get lean, you just have to quit carbs." I was like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. But I'll give it a try. So I gave it a try for like 3 or 4 days. I was like, I can't do this because like I was eating like every time I was eating, because I didn't eat fruits or vegetables at the time. So every time I ate, I was just having like 300 or 400 grams of chicken, like 3 or 4 times a day. You know?
Oh my god!
Like I don't think I can do this for the next couple of months.
Yeah.
So like, by the time I actually figured out, oh, like if it fits your macros, I can just, you know, like follow these 3 numbers and it's going to get me to where I want to be and just follow them, like, you know, like as best I can. I did that, got lean. And then like, it's like, you know, I kind of like where I am right now. I feel a bit afraid to put on body weight. You get up to a point where you're starting to lose your abs. time to quit again after my 3 month up. And
Yeah.
it took me ages to kind of get into that mindset of like pushing for something again, you know, and kind of getting comfortable putting my body weight. And it led me for a couple of years just being in the same exact body composition, same nick for ages, not really kind of not seeing anything meaningful despite like work I was putting in. And then it was actually just once I got into powerlifting, and again, I just started to focus on like performance. And then, you know, you start competing in your weight class. You're like, okay, the guys who are best in my weight class, how's their body composition? They're not shredded. They've got muscle, but they're not shredded. Okay, better push up my body weight a little bit here. And you get comfortable doing it. And then because your training is so like dedicated towards progressive overload over years and months, I do think there's something special about even just going through the peaking process. I think there's definitely something to gain muscle. I know like periodization for hypertrophy, there doesn't really seem to be like much like strong kind of evidence on it, but from even just the perspective of cycling your volume, going through like the higher volume, like kind of building blocks towards like the lower volume intensity blocks, and doing that like multiple times a year, I think there's something to that, to just like long-term physique development. Because of course, like most hypertrophy periodization studies are going to be like what, 12 weeks, whereas we're doing this across years, right? So there has to be something that's taking place, and then that getting fat and strong for periods of time, that allowed me to develop my physique more. But so many guys are afraid of doing that because they just want to have the lean jacked right now, and they want to do this like maintenance, right? They want to do a lean gaining phase. You have to do the dirty bulk at some point. I think it's a form
you got
of
to experience it. You got to experience
it.
Yeah. My experience mirrors that very similarly, where I'd say it was right when I got into the beginning of the juniors. I had been 93 kilos for the past like year to 2 years. And I was like, okay, I'm into the juniors now. If I can just maintain the same body weight and add 200 kilos to my total, I'm going to be fucking elite. I'm going to be on the podium. And then I tried to do that. And a year later, I'd added maybe like 10 kilos to my total. And the year prior, I'd added like 100 kilos to my total. And I was like, yo, this is fucking bullshit. I'm doing the same thing. Why am I not getting astronomically stronger? And then I was like, okay, I just need to work harder. I need to do more volume. I need to dig deeper in training. And then I would do that. And then I was just like sore and beat up all the time. And then not looking forward to training because I wasn't seeing progress. And I was like, I'm doing everything. I'm sleeping 9 hours a night. I'm like tracking all my food. I'm doing all this stuff. Except for the elephant in the room. You're not building any more muscle. Like you're not getting bigger. You've been the same size for the last 2 years and you're 19 years old. So then I competed against Gavin Aiden at the time, and he's like 5 foot. I'll be kind. He's 5'6", let's say, give or take like 2-3 inches. And I was like, yeah, there's no way I can compete with this guy. Like it makes sense why he's hitting the numbers that he's hitting when you look at the build that he has. There's no way me being a little skinny, lanky 93 kid, there's no way I can compete with that. But I was like, I can't get any heavier because I'm not shredded now. I don't look like C-bum now. So if I get any heavier than I am now, I'm going to be obese. I'm going to be like a bowling ball. There's no way I can get any heavier. So that put me off. I didn't even consider it. And then I was like, people in the 105s, they're way stronger too. So like, I'm gonna double fuck myself if I move up. So I need to work harder. There's some other trick that I need to do. I need to do more volume. I need to add an extra training day. I need to do blah 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 blah. Spent a year doing that. Added nothing to my total. I was like, I hate this sport. This is doing nothing for me. I'm going to quit. Every session I must have said I'm going to quit. I'm like, this is taking more from me than it's given. I can't do it. I don't know why I'm not making progress. This is killing me. And then I had 2 meets back to back, the Worlds where I competed against Gavin Aiden. And then I think it was like 6 weeks later, we had Junior Euros. And that was the first time my total had ever regressed. So I had to maintain like around 95 kilos going into that one. And I had like a water cut that I was going into the comp with, but I didn't have access to anything in the place that I was. So I was having to I had to try make the equivalent of a sauna and a hot bath just in the shower. And it just wasn't working. Like they couldn't get the water hot enough in this place. It was a disaster of a cut, spitting, things like that. I made weight fine, did the competition, just had a stinker of a day, and I was like, I'm quit. I'm done powerlifting. I hate this shit. This is fucking bullshit. I've put so much effort and energy into this over the last year and a half. My total hasn't moved and I got worse and I'm so bad. I suck. And then I can't remember what it was, but it was just like a smack in the face where it was like, you just need to get heavier. Amidst all my sulking, I was like, you just need to get heavier. Okay, what you're doing right now is not working. The only thing you haven't tried is getting bigger, getting heavier. And there had been people that like were in the gym who were more experienced. Adam Keane, for anyone who knows him, he had like competed for Ireland in years prior. He was like, man, he's like, you're too skinny. You need to get bigger. And I was like, shut up, man. You don't know. You don't know, brother. You don't know me. You don't know my story. He's like, you just need to get bigger. You need more muscle. And after that stinker of a comp, I was like, I need to try something different. And I was like, okay, I'm going to start eating more food. I'm going to start bulking. And from that point on, where my total had gone down, it was just like straight up. I was like, why? Why did no one tell me to do this sooner? This is the secret. This is magic. So I started seeing the exponential gains from that. So after a year of maybe adding 10 kilos to my total went up like 85 kilos the next year. I was like, fuck. Okay, now I'm starting to close the gap in like the rankings internationally. I actually have all the certs up here. So from that competition at Euros, I think I placed maybe 7th or 8th. And then the following year at Worlds, I placed 6th. And then at that Euros, I placed 4th. And then the following year at Worlds, I placed 5th. And then I placed 3rd at Euros after that. So it was like, as I was getting heavier, I was also getting more competitive and I was getting stronger. So I was like, fuck it. 120 time, baby. Let's keep going. I'm just going to blow past the 105s. I did 1 year in the 105s. Let me keep gaining. So it was kind of seeing the stalled progress. I then took what was working to make me get stronger, and I took it to like as far as I could go. I was like, this is working. Let me like wring out all the gains I can get from being in a surplus. And then you look back and you're 117 and you're like, holy shit, I'm like 35% body fat. Now we need to address that and start coming down again.
I think though what you mentioned a while back is that it was like it was for a purpose, right? So like ultimately at the end of the day, it's not as if it was just like you were out of control and you're just lazy, like, you know, like for some people, folks do turn into that, right? It's like they get to a certain point and they get bored of like, you know, tracking some metrics, or they just lose a little bit of love for it, or I don't know what it is. I haven't been in that position myself, so I don't understand what this psychology is. But I guess like if when you're doing it for a specific reason to compete internationally, like it's kind of one of those things. It's like everybody else is doing it, so I was like, yeah, I guess I'm gonna have to play this game too, because there's actually one argument I've had. Like one of my friends is trying to separate like competing from like health based, like from like health seeking, right? Because like competing for bodybuilding or powerlifting at the high levels and like what you're doing when you're like either the week of or you're trying to cut weight for competition, you know, even just, you know, training through the most horrendous aches and pains, like you wouldn't look at that at the outside and say that's a really healthy
that's
behavior.
a healthy thing to do.
Or even like, you know, the like staying up at night thinking about your total, like all that stuff is like not normal, but like that's what athletes do, right? And it's not to say that it's healthy, but it is in purpose for competition, right? And I think that's something that a lot of people in general population just don't understand when it does come to either powerlifting or bodybuilding, because they see it as, oh, I go to the gym, I lift weights, and I do this to improve my health. That person over there, they're doing lifting weights, but they're also they're having a nosebleed while they're squatting.
They're bleeding out of their forehead.
You know, or even on like with steroid use, like, you know, people say, wow, they're like eating so well, like, you know, they're so lean, they're lifting all this weight, they're doing all this cardio, but then they're injecting themselves with steroids. Like that person made educated, like hopefully an educated, like, you know, kind of educated. What am I trying to say here?
Compromise almost.
That they're going to take this risk and, you know, somewhat impose their health for the sake of competition.
Yeah, there was a value decision made there.
Like
for whatever reason,
they're hopefully they're not deluded and thinking that they're doing it to improve their health.
Yeah,
I think that's just something that a lot of people don't understand. And there's going to be points in time when you are bulking or doing a diet for self-interest. It's a hobby at the end of the day, right? Like there's a certain amount of muscle mass that we'll gain, a certain strength level that we get to, that beyond that, it's not serving us any other benefit other than it's fun. You know, it's a hobby, you know, like And past that, you will maybe do things that are just like weird, unhealthy, don't serve any other purpose other than that goal. And like, while from the outside, right? Like from the outside, there's going to be people who will see Andrew Blackwood, the powerlifter, international powerlifter, and they're like, who? Like they don't know that. But within our kind of circle, within our like community, you're a big deal, right? And your accomplishments are a big deal to you as well. But again, the same way like the person down the road who's like an Ironman competitor and one of the best in the area,
Yeah.
fucking know, you know. But what
Dunno.
they do is also a bit
Yeah.
kind of casual or pushing the limits of what's potentially healthy or sane for a person to do for a performance-based goal, you know?
Yeah. And yeah, that's definitely something that I have become a little bit more conscious of, in the sense that kind of in precision nutrition, they talk about this concept of like deep health and so on and so forth, of like the different aspects of your health, between like your physical health, your emotional, mental, relational, like all those different areas. And I was finding the further I was going in that performance direction, the more it was taking away from the other aspects of my health.
Hmm.
And again, for the period of time, it was 100% worth it. I was like, this powerlifting is the most important thing in my life. From when I was like 16 years old, it was like this was the area that I was able to get like external validation and praise, and like people telling me that you're strong and you're good and you're cool. And I was like, yo, if other people think I'm strong and good and cool, that means I can think I'm like strong and good and cool. I want more of that. I want more of that feeling. Like this is the avenue that I'm getting. Like I'm getting my self-esteem from. So I want to just like lean into this. I want more of it. It's like addictive. Every time you hit a PB, you get to post it and people are liking it. So I just want to like, I want to feed into that. I want to take as much as I can from that. I want to like push into this performance aspect as much as possible, dedicated like my whole life around it. Like everything in my day, that was the most important thing. And then it got to a stage where you're out of the juniors, then you're not as competitive. And I was like, now I feel like maybe I want some more of these aspects of my life back again. I want to be able to scale this down so that I can enjoy the other areas of actually feeling like physically healthy. I got my bloods done. I didn't want to get them when I was so heavy, because I was genuinely scared to see what it came back as. 100%, I was scared to see what
I
that was
can
going to
imagine.
say. So I waited until I was down nearly 20 kilos to get them done at first, and thankfully they came back like quite good across the board. But like my blood pressure was high, my cholesterol was high, and this is after cutting down 20 keys. So I was like, how bad was it? And if I had stayed that big, how detrimental would that have been? Because it's funny, and as you're saying, obviously I'm still a very young guy, but it was getting to the stage where I'm like, okay. And this is something that I'm not 100% sure about, because I would always hear coming up that like people hit the juniors, and as soon as they're out of the juniors, like they just fall off and they quit. They can't hack it. They don't want to go into the open. I do think there's something to that. When you get into that like category, it's around a time where a lot of changes are happening in your life, I would say. And for me, it was like, okay, it's time to start growing up a bit. I don't know if I can have my life so absolutely, unbelievably, incredibly obsessed around powerlifting. Like I want to get to a stage where I'm buying a house and like starting a family and things like that. I want to be at that stage in the next like kind of 4 or 5 years, late 20s coming into 30. Like I want to start a family and kind of be set up and financially independent and all those things by that stage. And for whatever reason, when I got to 24, I was like, now is probably when I should start putting things in motion to be able to take care of that, because I know that's like one of the most important values that I have. So if that means scaling down the performance side of things and not being 117, so I can be that little bit healthier and I can dedicate more time to stuff like growing the business and growing the coaching. Because I would find, honestly, like when it was peaking time, my brain was like so preoccupied and so caught up with my own performance and traveling and trying to make sure that I'm getting 9 hours sleep. Like if it's the case where I have like a really heavy session coming up and I wake up and I realize I've maybe had like 7 hours sleep last night, I don't care. I'm going back to sleep. And even if I'm not falling asleep, I'm lying in bed with my eyes closed until I feel as though I've got close to that 8-9 hours. So that would take like precedent above everything else. I don't want to check too many things on my phone before I've gone to train, because I don't want it to potentially affect my headspace going into a session where I know I have to like hit a really high, like max attempt, whatever it's going to be. I would literally, like, everything was geared towards my performance being as optimal as possible. And it got to a stage where I was like, okay, it's fun. It's so fun doing that. But I want to get to a stage where that's not so all consuming. And like I was saying, I struggle to do that. I struggle to be able to say, like, I'm gonna compartmentalize this and go give this 80% effort so that I can give another area a bit more effort. Like if I'm doing something, I want to do it 100% and give it everything that I can. And that's probably maybe a character flaw of me. I could just be better at that. But I find that I just get overly obsessive and I want to excel and I want to give it like 100% focus and attention. Stepping back from that, the competitive side of things, has given me more freedom to dedicate to other areas of my life that would have suffered in the pursuit of maximum performance over the last like 7 years. Because from 2019, I was just in the cycle. So from 2019 to 2020, what are we now? 2025. It was literally the cycle of Euros, Worlds, Euros, Worlds, Euros, Worlds, Euros, Worlds. And you're just constantly prepping for something. There was never a time where I felt I could take the foot off the pedal again, because I knew there was this like impending point of the juniors ending. And I wanted to like maximize the amount of progress that I can make. And it was the same for sub juniors. I was like, I know I have a year and a half left. I can't miss a single session. I can't miss a single rep. I can't like have a single bad night's sleep, because I want to perform at the utmost. I would hate to get to that competition that's going to be my last sub junior or my last junior competition and say, fuck, I could have done a little bit more. So I want to like squeeze everything that I can out of the process between now and then. And then it gets to a stage where you're like, okay, fuck, that was so all consuming for a number of years. There's probably some other areas of my life that could do with a bit of love and attention at the moment.
Yeah, well, when you think about it, like essentially a third of your life has been spent competing, you know? So does that continue? Do you just continue following down that path? Because yeah, I'm sure I don't have the experience myself because I never competed internationally, but like I'm sure at some point, like as you maybe alluded to there, it does get a little bit like of cyclical. You kind of get a little bit kind of bored. It's like, okay, I'm prepping for again. I can't imagine, you know, your fifth time you compete at Worlds hits as good as it does like the first few times, because
yeah, which sounds so bad to say. It sounds so bad to say that you would like take it for granted, or that like you wouldn't be appreciative of the opportunity, because it is such a big deal. But like I've done 10 internationals, so I've done 6 Euros and then 5 Worlds. Definitely it, I don't want to say take for granted, but it does get to a stage where like the competitions are very expensive and the federation is good to us like with what they have and how much support that they can give. But there's been routinely like competitions that I would end up spending like multiple thousands to get to like travel to, the accommodation, all the food that you like have to buy while you're there, like thousands and thousands. So it was a cycle of multiple years where like you're saving up all year so that you can pay to go to this comp. And then you have like the double whammy back to back of Worlds and Euros, which like what a niche problem to have. So I don't want to seem like I'm complaining about it, but it does like add up. It is definitely a consideration. And it was getting to the stage of competitions where I was like, for the financial trade-off, like what is it that I'm getting from this competition versus like what do I have to invest and commit and give to it. So yeah, that was starting to be more and more of a thought as I was going. And it was worth it when I had, again, that deadline of the juniors. But say when I was considering going to Worlds, Open Worlds this year, I was like, okay, it's going to be my 11th competition. It's going to cost a lot of money. It's going to be a lot of travel, which like interferes with the coaching and business side of things. I don't know like if that trade-off is worth it for me now at this point. Now it would be cool to like do an Open Worlds, but for where I am and the values that I have, is it necessary? Like what do I get back from it versus what would I have to commit and give to it? It was a like that value trade-off of I can happily take a step back from this and be content that I don't need to. I don't feel as though I'm going to miss out on anything that I would regret down the line.
Hmm. Yeah, I think as well, like when you still have so much time ahead of you in regards to like if you want to take a break from powerlifting completely for like the next 2 to 5 years, right? You'll get back. You could get back into it. You're not even 30 yet, and you still haven't kind of reached the kind of age where people are kind of typically
Yeah.
peaking.
Yeah.
And ultimately at the end of the day, like powerlifting is kind of like bodybuilding in the sense that like the people who just stay in the game the longest, stay the healthiest the longest, are the people who typically do the best, right? Because like it's not necessarily about you enter into the open. I know you did one open competition, but it's not as if like you do your first year in the open and all of a sudden you're in like the A flight at Worlds, and you're competing for the podium. It takes a lot longer than that, and I understand why there is the drop off in juniors to open it. Like as I said, right, if you have spent like the last 7 years of your life dedicated towards competing, there are a lot of like kind of formative years for a lot of people. Like I didn't start competing until I was 25. By that stage, I had done a lot like in terms of like life.
Yeah.
I'd gotten all like essentially the majority of partying out of my system. Like I was like way
Yeah.
past that. Whereas like now it's like kind of few and far between. Thankfully, for me, like I didn't feel then once I started powerlifting, if I was saying no to events or giving up on going on holidays, I didn't really feel I was missing out because I've kind of already done all that kind of shit. Like I wanted to experience something different. And I think to go back towards a kind of a general theme that you're kind of pointing out is like for a period of time in life, you're very unbalanced, but it's to achieve something that it's pretty meaningful in the grand scheme of things. Because like, if you go to a party or something like that and people are chatting to you like, oh, what's your interest? And you start telling them about powerlifting, like, oh, I'm actually quite good at powerlifting. Like that becomes like it's something like that people are like really, really interested in. But you only have those tales to tell because it came from a period of time where
Yeah.
you're like
Yeah. It
restricting
came
everything
from
else. Right?
that sacrifice.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
you like, and that's the tale of pretty much anybody who is interested or has like interesting stories to tell. Like you like I get people to come on the podcast who are essentially unbalanced in like one area of their life or another. I'm not getting on just the average Joe who's you're like you don't even know what to talk to them because it's not as interesting. It's like again, people who are unbalanced, they have something within them, whether it's like a mindset, something within their mindset that allows them to stick to a very like set kind of regimen for a period of time, work towards like this singular focus. And there's definitely something to that, but it definitely has an expiry date too, as you mentioned. Like with obviously you were self-aware enough at a young age to realize that the juniors is coming up and like continue down this kind of route, maybe not the best for my health, but there's other areas of life to enjoy excelling and progressing. Because I also think it is kind of sad if just being the athlete becomes the only thing in somebody's life forever. I mean, this is something you actually see with people in professional sports, like powerlifting. If you were going from junior to open and you were getting like a salary and like a nice bump up in like terms of pay from it, which you're not getting anything from it realistically, other than helps maybe with the coaching business. But if you were getting financial incentive for it, yeah, you'd probably stay with it, right? But you see with like soccer players, like you'll have like guys getting signed to like Premier League teams at like 17. They're playing this sport now for 13 years and then they're just gone, and then what happens? A lot of them like end up like with serious mental health issues, and
Yeah.
so much of that
Yeah.
is because
That
they've been involved.
identity kind of.
Yeah, it's like the identity, but they've also like missed out on like this really important time in your life when your brain is forming, you're experiencing all these things, and your way of experiencing it has been completely different to everybody else around you. Then you're just left on your own, and you're like, okay, how am I meant to navigate
Yeah.
life now? Like,
This.
what's next?
What am I? What do I do? What am I?
Mm.
Yeah. 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 That's a fascinating one. That's I've been kind of dealing with that a little bit, with no longer viewing myself necessarily as a power lifter, but feeling as though And I think this is all like self-imposed. I think this is all created in my own head, but feeling as though there's an expectation of me to do that because I had done in the past. So if I'm not living up to that, am I like falling short of the expectations that other people have of me? Do other people look at me like I'm just fucking washed now? Or were all those experiences that I had before, are they no longer relevant? Is it a situation of like, what have you done for me lately? Like, what have you? People talk about like when you're a world champion, like you're a world champion forever. But are you? Like, do people care? Like, who was the world champion 2019? No, because a lot of people are generally concerned about who's going to be the world champion 2026. Now, obviously, you can still say that you have that accolade, and that is the belief that I have. That was partially why I was so committed and dedicated, because I had the belief that, say, like numbers, I always viewed my numbers on like squat, bench, deadlift as little, almost like video game achievements. And once I hit it one time, no one could ever take that away from me. Like I will
Mm.
always have that achievement. I'll always have that
Mhm.
in my back pocket. I can always say I bench 200. I can always say that I like have these medals at home. I do feel like there is this sense, and again, maybe it's just entirely created in my head of, it is like, what have you done for me lately? And when you take a step back out of that, it's you're definitely taking a step away from relevancy. I actually heard Seabon talk about it quite a bit, struggling with that identity shift of no longer being the guy, and
Mm.
like seeing his followers drop off. Say, because
Oh
whatever, he
yeah.
has millions. He saw like 10,000 followers drop off, and he was like, "Fuck! Like, am I not the guy anymore? Like, am I shit?" And he's like, yeah, but I made this decision because I knew my values were no longer aligned with going in that direction. I knew I could have continued competing and like pushing that uh side of things, like getting more money, getting more followers, getting more fame, but I knew that was no longer aligned with the values and what is most important to me in my life. So seeing that trickle down, that is the trade-off that I'm willing to make. I've definitely experienced, no fucking C-bomb obviously, but definitely experienced a bit of like identity, what would I even call it? Struggle seems like too big of a word for what it is, but a bit like, fucking, what am I now? Like, do
Mm.
I fit in a box anymore of
Yeah.
like being labeled as this thing? Like, if people ask me like what I do I even say I'm a powerlifter anymore? Do I say like I coach powerlifting? I used to powerlift. I used to do. I swear, I benched 200 before. I swear to God. Like, what am I now? And even I felt a little bit restricted, even in the label of like powerlifting coaching, because a lot of the things that I'm really interested in, I feel probably fall outside of the realm of what a powerlifting coach, or what I perceive a powerlifting coach would talk about. So I'm like, am I unqualified to talk about these things? No, I don't want to feed into that belief. But do other people perceive me, and then going into that like whole world of coming up with scenarios, but do other people perceive me as like talking outside of my scope or stepping outside of my lane to explore these things around like the behavioral psychology aspect and yada yada yada. So I almost feel a little bit restricted in the powerlifting coach identity too, because there's tons of things that I want to explore. So I just have given myself permission to talk about the things that interest me and make content around things that are interesting to me and so on. There's like a little bit of hesitation where I'm thinking, if I'm not competing, does that affect my ability to coach? No, because I've still had all of these experiences and I still have all the same knowledge. But do people look at me differently if I'm not actively competing? Should I actively compete just so that people think I'm more involved in the world? Like kind of convoluted thoughts like that, which I don't believe to be the case, because there's so many of the best coaches out there who are like, they're not competitors whatsoever. But there's definitely been those questions and that shift in identity and preoccupation of like, am I am I or should I do certain things for how it will be perceived to other people? But you never know how you're going to be perceived to other people.
Mm.
So what I come back to is just act in alignment with what is interesting and fascinating to me, and hopefully that's interesting, fascinating, and valuable enough to other people as well. Because for me, I think I've found recently something that I'm like getting so much fulfillment and engagement from. And I don't know if it's just because it's the avenue that I've gone down, but plenty of people that I work with are moving in the direction of, you know what, maybe I want to cut down a little bit. Maybe I could drop like 10 kilos or so, and going through that journey with people and seeing the shift that happens within like them when they go through this process of trimming down some body fat and getting to see some of the aesthetic goals that they had when they were first getting into the gym. That's like, so that's lighting my fire. That's like becoming so fulfilling and rewarding. And I'm like, okay, could I like I've kicked around the idea, do I branch into maybe pushing that like service a little bit more, because it's something that feels really like relevant to me at the moment. It's something that I get a lot of fulfillment from, but I don't want to stray too far from like the powerlifting aspect. I don't want to start like promoting fat loss stuff or like
Yeah.
systems around that or content around that because I'm meant to be like the powerlifting coach. That's the identity that I've created for myself, and then that's subconsciously like creating the rules and the confines and the limitations of what I can work within. So kind of just trying to give myself a little bit of permission to follow what is feeling most compelling for me. And that's when I feel, I don't have like a fancy, like eloquent word to put it, but that's when I feel best. I feel most like enjoyment. I feel most like at peace rather than trying to force myself to be something that I think other people might want me to be.
Yeah, aligned, I think, is probably the word you're looking for, is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that because, like, I guess, I obviously powerlifted for years to my last competition in April, and even though I competed in bodybuilding, like, before that, like, I've always been slow to kind of label myself as well, and I don't know, I think it's just more so, I think just like assuming that is my entire identity just kind of comes with stereotypes as well. If I say I'm a bodybuilder, there's going to be a certain thing that the average person is going to think of me. They're probably going to think I am probably, I don't know, a bit extremely neurotic, not a bit neurotic. Probably think I eat nothing but chicken, broccoli, and rice. Probably automatically think I'm taking steroids. These are just some kind of common things that maybe people just hear when they think when they hear about bodybuilder, right? And similar powerlifter, like, oh, so you take 20 minutes between sets, you hug the squat rack, like, when you go to the gym, is that the one where you put the bar over your head?
Is it in
Just
the
like
Olympics?
just silly things like that. So, like, I like Eric Helms has talked about this before, but like he would always say, like, I'm Eric, but I do bodybuilding, or I'm Eric, but I do powerlifting, and like I'd kind of like take that approach. And again, it's not because I don't want people to think of me as a powerlifter or bodybuilder, because I do the two of them. But like, I guess I also didn't want to kind of put myself in those pigeonholes, I guess, because I didn't want to then myself to just think of myself that way, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah,
And
100%.
then maybe it's starting to maybe follow common tropes that either group do, like the stereotype type of either group do. And it also kind of allowed me to shift between the two kind of sports really easily, like when I did my last competition in April, like I kind of knew when I competed this time last year, and like it was my best competition, like I won it overall, and I was like, yes, I've won it overall. Well, actually, you know what, I didn't even celebrate that I won it overall. I was like, Lawrence was handling me, and I had like left to come back to Spain on the Sunday, and they had announced like, no, I won it overall on the Sunday, and he sent me a picture, and I was like, that's cool. But like, it wasn't like, it wasn't. I didn't compete to win the overall. I wanted to lift 300 kilos, and I did that. So I was like, fuck yes.
Yeah.
But I knew by that competition that the one I was doing in April was the last one I was going to do, because I had like that kind of vision of getting on stage again in 2027, and that was pretty much like the kind of best time for me to do my last competition with, if you get me. I wanted to do one more reps and so on. But once I finished the competition in April, there was no, after a competition, sometimes you're like, oh fuck, can't wait to do that again. Or like, I can't wait to like for the next competition to try hit X, Y, and Z. There was none of that. It was completely like, this is done, I'm on to the next thing. Like I literally started my diet, and I started with AJ on the Monday. I remember it was like the Sunday after the competition, right? And I've been out that night before, after the competition, with fucking Lawrence and fucking John Hack and everything like that. Like drinking pints until like 5 a.m. in the morning, and got my onboard video from AJ, right? And it's been so long since I've been like really strict with my diet, and he's like, okay, so in terms of like how off I want you to be in your macros, I want to be 10 grams off with your protein and carbs, 5 grams off with your fat. This is the type of adherence I expect from you, and I know it's the type of adherence you're going to deliver. And I was like, oh, fuck, what have I got myself into?
Here we go.
But it was easy for me to just like switch from the powerlifting to bodybuilding, because I didn't really kind of consider myself as like true like diehard kind of powerlifter. It's an interest of mine, and coming back to why we start this thing, they're just vehicles for me to kind of end up at the physique or the accolades that I think are cool.
Yeah. Yeah. When did you do your first bodybuilding show?
2022.
Okay. And
Yeah,
when did you
so
do
that
your first powerlifting meet?
2019. Yeah,
Okay.
but 3 years ago beat him.
And what made you do that? What made you shift between them?
I was talking about this on it with Nico a little bit in my last podcast, but like I never perceived myself to do a bodybuilding show. It was one of those things in my mind, like similar to a lot of things that I would have done in powerlifting, that I just, when you're kind of starting training and there's some goals just seem so out of reach and they just seem so far away from where you are at the time. So you don't really kind of think about them. So I didn't think about stepping on stage until I was like, realistically, until I was a couple of years in powerlifting. Before I started powerlifting, there's no thought in my mind was like, I'm going to do a bodybuilding show ever. And it was really just like, Emma, she was getting interested in bodybuilding. She was working at AJ Morris at the time as well. And she was like, okay, I'm going to prep in 2022. And, I was kind of getting closer to that year. And I just qualified for nationals. And I qualified for nationals, do nationals. It's my first goals that I set when I got into powerlifting. Because, it's good standard of lifting to get to. Only a couple of places people in the country get to qualify per weight class. So if I get there, I can be happy with myself that I've gotten to a certain level of lifting that most people would think is pretty good, and it would be a standout kind of achievement for me. And then it's like, okay, if I said to them, if I total 700 at nationals, I'll do the prep with you. So I did that, and then I just committed. It's like, you know what, the next milestone for me is ages away. I don't know what the next milestone is, and I don't know. I kind of felt like this after I hit the 300 deadlift last year. I didn't. I think the kind of death of powerlifting for me at that time was like, I don't know what my next milestone that's going to give me that drive is, and I don't know if I'm in a position right now to think about it. And as a result, I don't think I'm in a position right now to actually motivate myself to continue training like this if I don't have a North Star. So that was that. It was like, I said to myself, if I could total 700 kilos, I should have a decent amount of muscle mass built by this point to actually make it worthwhile for me to step on stage, because no point in me getting on stage if I don't have a good amount of muscle mass. And that was that. I always wanted to work with 3DMJ, reached out to them, got them to prep me. I was like, yes, this is my kind of dream kind of coaching relationship for my first prep. So yeah, that was that, man. It's just one of those things. I hadn't done a proper diet in so long since before powerlifting that when the time came to prep, I was like, let's get skinned. I'll eat dust if I have to. I just want to change the pace,
Yeah, I like that. And that sounds very similar to what I'm experiencing at the moment, because bodybuilding show never even in the realm of possibility. Not even something you would give a second of consideration or thought. Obviously, when you're 117, that's not it's not on the cards anytime soon. But now it's like, okay, I'm 80. It's only it's less than 10 kilos down from here. That's doable. That could be done. It's not outside the realm of possibility. So yeah, I like that. And how was that first prep? What was that first experience like?
It was so I wanted that first prep to be not as difficult as it potentially could have been, but I wanted to test myself as much as I can. So I did 6 shows across the competition season. Most people are only going to do maybe 2 or 3, but I just wanted to get as much experience on stage as possibly could. And I always had this kind of idea in my mind. It's like, if similar to you, if I'm gonna do a competition season, I'm gonna get as much out of it as I can. I'm gonna do as just put myself through it. So I did 3 shows in Ireland. Did the NBFI, WNBF, and a PCA show. PCA show was untested. Did that in classic physique. I didn't intend to do that at the start of the season, but Emma was doing it, so I said, "Fuck, I may as well. I'm gonna be going. I'm gonna be in shape. I'll do it." And I ended up placing 3rd out of 10 guys. So I was like, "Yes,
hell yeah!"
And then I competed 3 shows internationally. I did UKDFBA over in Leicester. I did INBA Europeans over in Hungary, and then I did WNBF Worlds in LA. And my kind of doing Worlds from the outset of prep was my goal, because Like I followed Team 3DMJ and Alberto Nunez, Eric Helms, all those since I kind of got into, or since I discovered natural bodybuilding, right? And so that for me was always like the pinnacle to get to. So I just wanted to do my utmost best to get there. I was in LA, like obviously dream location
Yeah,
to do a competition. So that was like a kind of fairy tale ended to it, especially because like Eric ended up being like my like handler like for the competition because
yeah,
Brad Loomis was coaching me and he couldn't make
yeah.
it because he had some family things on the same weekend. But like all the 3DMJ crew were there and like met up with Eric the day before the show and he's like, okay, let me see how you're looking. I was like, is this real? Is Eric
This
Helms
is
actually?
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
checking out my physique right now, and yeah, like it was just it was a really fun experience. I would say like it's hard to explain what a prep is like until you're kind of in it because every day is just
yeah,
Groundhog Day, right? It just
yeah.
seems like every day is just you're just ticking the boxes, and then all of a sudden it's like peak week, and the peak week is probably like the most challenging time for it was probably the most challenging time for me, really, because you're having such a change in routine, right? You're spending most of your time like during prep, you're just doing the exact same thing every single day. Then you get to the week before the show, and all of a sudden, you're changing how much food you're eating. You're eating more, and like at certain times, when you're eating more during that week, you can start to look a little bit kind of different, and
Okay.
like your
Spill over a little bit, or
your body image and like your
yeah,
perception of how you look is so skewed at that point that like you can start to think that you look worse when you're actually going to the shows the day before. You get your first layer of tan, and when you get your first layer of tan it washes you out completely, so like under normal lighting like it looks like you were just like completely soft. It is, yeah, just looks completely soft. And then it's not until like the next day when you have your next coat and you're underneath the lights with the glaze that you actually look savage. So those kind of points there are tough for me, but that's why I did 6 shows, because if I just did one show, I would not have kind of understood that as much. Whereas in 6 shows, in six peak weeks, I got
yeah.
a lot of kind of feedback
Normalize
in
it.
regards to what I did wrong, what I could do better, how I can approach these weeks better going forward. And the key for me is learning how to manage anxiety and nerves around those weeks and just getting myself to be calm, because that's something I struggle with.
Man, you're getting me fired up. I want to do a show. Fuck. Fuck.
So you're going to mention about the tattoos, right? And
Yeah,
like there are competitors who have tattoos, right? And they would have sleeves. It's just like a different type of tan that you can use to cover up. Like you will have certain companies will do that as like an extra service for a show day, because like Emma has tattoos. Well, Emma has like obviously she's not trying to get like the most
yeah,
jacked delts
yeah,
possible, but she has a sleeve on like her arm as well, and like they provide that as an extra service, just like tattoo cover up. Because like if say for example if you covered right your
yeah,
arm there and it's really really
yeah,
lean,
yeah.
obviously there's
If
going to be a
you,
slight kind of film of like fluid over it. But if you have like deep separations in your shoulder, that's still going to
yeah,
show through.
it'll show. Yeah, yeah.
It's just all about
Provided
the
it.
kind of color being on point. So it is definitely feasible. And then as well, also comes down to expectations, right? Your first season, you're probably not
Yeah,
going to be setting the world on fire,
yeah,
or at least you probably shouldn't have that expectation. Similar to your first ever powerlifting meet, you're not coming in and be like, I'm going to
yeah,
dominate here,
yeah, yeah,
So I think that's also a thing. And you kind of see, okay, well, do I enjoy this? Is it worth doing another
yeah,
one? And I remember
yeah,
when I did that show in LA, I was like sitting backstage, real nervous, and like Alberto Nunez was there, and he just like finished competing earlier on that day, and I was chatting to him, and he's like, oh, so this is your it's gonna be this is your first season. I was like, yeah. He's like, I'm telling you, however good you think you look right now, your next season, you're gonna blow your mind how good you're gonna look. And it's like, okay,
yeah.
I've faith in you, bodybuilding Yoda.
Yeah, I'll take it from you. I'll take it from you. Fuck. So what was the timescale between all the different shows then? Presumably they were like relatively
Yeah,
close,
relatively
were they?
close. I started first competition was, I believe it was like towards the end of September, and the last competition was end of November. So it was a lot of travel,
Okay.
a
Yeah.
lot of travel. It was like,
In that period of time. Is
yeah,
that tricky with the travel?
not so much. Like it depends. Like you obviously if you're traveling internationally, you want to be there a few days beforehand.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like when we traveled to Hungary, for example, we were there for like at least one full day before the show. For when we were in LA, We were there for about 2 weeks, but that's because Emma did a show in Las Vegas. Then she did a show. Then we did the shows in LA. So there was that. So it's like that's in consideration just for adapting to the time schedule. But realistically, at that point of prep, your sleep schedule is so fucked that like it doesn't really matter. Like you get to the point where you're waking up at like 3:30 in the morning, and just can't go back to sleep.
And
And your bedtime is also going to like 7:30.
So how do you get to Worlds? What was the process to get to that? Do you have to qualify for that, or is there like divisions, or what's
Yeah,
the story?
So the process for WMBF was, because it was their first year, they kind of just gave invites to anybody who they thought
Okay.
would represent well. The kind of downside to it is that it is completely all self-funded. And in my opinion, it's like, it's your hobby, If you want to do your hobby, fund it yourself, I know people do, they go fund me and stuff like that. I don't agree with that. If you want to do your hobby, pay for it yourself. I'm not
Yeah.
paying for it. That's just my opinion. But yeah, that's the only kind of downside to it, because it can be very expensive, of course, going all the way over to Worlds, right? You have to pay for your visa, to pay for probably a week in a hotel, flights, all the food. People complain about the food price in Ireland. Try
Yeah.
go over to the States. Like, the States is absolutely insane. Like, we paid $350 for a food shop for like 3 days in Las Vegas.
God.
Like, in prep, when you're not even eating that much.
Yeah. What the fuck? That's insane. That is insane.
So yeah, you get the invite, and then it's just a case of, okay, I've got the invite now. I go onto WMBF website, buy my entry ticket, which is like $200 or something like that. You pay for your drug test, your polygraph, and then you go.
And who invites you? Is it the Irish Fed?
Yes, the Irish Federation. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you will have like, this is like another kind of thing, and it's kind of similar in powerlifting, right? So we have like the splintering of federations. Obviously, the IPF is the main unifying body and like the main body really in tested powerlifting, whereas natural bodybuilding is so splintered. Like, there's so many different. It's like almost like fucking boxing to a degree.
Yeah.
But like, say for example, the NBFI would be Ireland's other federation, and a lot of their qualification system is based off like, if I win my category, I can go on to compete at like the next stage. I can go up to like Europeans. If I do well at Europeans, I can go on to the Worlds. Their kind of system is a little bit kind of different, because they're after recently having like they're recently after unaffiliating to a kind of world body, if you get me. So it's kind of messed up. It's all down to like drug testing, essentially.
Okay. Yeah, because that's something that I wondered about, like with different federations or organizations. Is there different categories / like slightly different rule sets, or is it uniform across them?
So some federations will have drug testing done outright. So say for example, WMBF, everybody gets polygraphs before the show. And then if you win, you also get urinalysis. All right. So if you're top three, you might, like, winner, absolutely get urinalysis. If you're top three, you might. If like you're kind of suspect, they'll likely test you again. But everybody gets polygraphed. Then other federations, they might just do winners, and it's a might, So I've heard of other kind of national organizations who they haven't tested winners at all. Particularly like the NPC. So like if you ever see like the two bros over in the UK, they've, it's been said. It's been said. I'm making sure I cover myself here.
We don't incriminate ourselves.
People have like, won overalls, or like, won their classes, and they realistically should be getting tested, but they're not getting tested. I was like, doesn't really sit well with me.
Yeah. I've experienced similar in the IPF, where say someone breaks the world record total by a significant margin, and then I'm chatting with the person after the comp, and we walk out of the venue together, and they don't get tested, and I'm like, yo, what the fuck? This guy's been training 2 years, and he totaled 50 kilos over the world record. At least test them. At least just on the, like, I don't know. Do you think, like, obviously there's this whole and we don't need to get too in the weeds, drug tested doesn't mean drug free in bodybuilding. Do you think that that is prevalent? Do you think it happens a lot, a little, more than one would hope, more than one would like?
Yeah, this is this it's a very hot topic,
There's
isn't it?
landmines here. There's yeah, it's
Yeah,
a
I I'm generally an optimist in this type of situation, and people could say, well, an optimist is not a realness, right? But my kind of perspective is because there is so little that you can actually really get from competing in natural bodybuilding as somebody who's taken stuff. I just think I can't imagine to be in a position to actually kind of do that, if you get me, like as a competitor, because if even if you won all of the natural shows across the world, like the big ones, you might cover your expenses in terms of like travel, accommodation, and entry fees. You're not really going to get anything else. And like most people who obviously get to that point, if they were to win all those competitions, they're passing tons of drug tests. You know, because like I think a lot of like the true natural bodybuilding federations are kind of like catching on that like some people are trying to like game the system a little bit more, so they're getting a little bit more kind of like finicky on the likes of their drug testing scenarios. And whatever about passing a drug test once, but somebody passing a
yeah.
drug test
If you're
multiple times, and being like, people who are probably on the radar for drug testing. I don't think it's possible for people to be kind of gaming the system that much, or even to do it without being found out. There's like the classic kind of saying is like there's only one way to keep a secret, and that's like to keep it to yourself. If you tell two
yeah,
people,
yeah,
the only way
yeah,
they're keeping
it's
that secret is if you
yeah,
kill the other person.
yeah,
So like, their coach would have to know. The coach is going to have loose lips in some scenarios, and they're going to have to tell other people, and then it's going to float around, and eventually the person gets found out. So I just don't see. It definitely does happen, right? People do get caught out, but I just don't see what the incentive is for people to do it at high level. And most people who are, if they are trying to cheat the system, are likely still doing poorly at shows and not getting like rewarded. So if you are doping and you're doing shit in competitions, I don't care if you compete against me, because like a good natural physique is like gonna beat somebody who has a bad gear up physique.
yeah, yeah,
You know, like it's just because it's not like gear makes you win. It's like
yeah,
everything
yeah.
else.
There's so many more components to it.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
gear amplifies it. What about you?
There, I went through a period where I was like, "Fucking everyone's on gear, man. Everyone's on gear." But I'm taking more of the. I I think it gets to a stage where there's just like an acceptance of fucking like there's nothing I can do about it, even if there are people. I think maybe I'm particularly sensitive to it because there was a World Championships where I placed fourth, and the person who placed third tested positive for taking a load of shit like 6 weeks later, and they had to get the medal back from him and then post it to me.
Mm,
But I got it like 3 4 months after the competition, didn't get to stand on the podium, and I was a little bit salty about that. And at that World Championships, they didn't actually test anyone in the 120s. They only caught this guy at a subsequent competition a couple of weeks later. So there was like a couple people who, in my opinion, it's like crazy not to test them. And this guy, okay, we are gonna do it. I'm gonna seem like
yeah,
I'm gonna seem
go
like
for
a
it, man.
hater, but yeah, I do think it probably happens more than one would like, but at the same time, you can't do anything about it.
Mm,
You just have to like focus on. You have to run your own race because otherwise, you'll just be like an angry old man shaking your fist at the clouds. Like, what? What are you gonna do about it? Are you just gonna take a step back and not compete on the off chance that someone is there? You just have to hope that the processes would catch someone out. Like you said, fucking people will get found out eventually. They'll say to someone, it will say to someone, it will say to someone, and it'll come out. Or if they're having to do multiple tests back to back, the likelihood is eventually they'll get caught.
mm,
Yeah, not really too much that you can do about it. You just try to take as an optimistic an outlook as possible. Hope people are being fair, etc. And then just run your own race, focus on yourself, do the best that you can.
mm. I think also it's like, okay, well, assuming within drug tested sports, there are some people finally underneath the radar and end up getting placings or whatever like that, and like they don't get found out. And people say, okay, well, there's no such thing as natural bodybuilding or like, powerlifting naturally to our level. Like everybody's taking stuff. It's like, okay. So what's the alternative then? Do we just decide, okay, fuck, everybody's taking stuff. So let's just all compete untested. Let's all just take loads of gear. Let's just all fuck get the sauce. Like, is that the alternative? Because then what happens? Oh, that person's cheating. I'd look like that if I took steroids too. Like, it's like, come on, for fuck's sake. Because it's the people who are in the comments having these fucking debates. like, I one thing I just find hilarious is like when you're reading some comments on like in that you're not post, and like this person is so convinced that that person is like not natural. Like it's like they have insider information when they've just watched a Greg Doucette video and they're like, Greg said this about their blood test, like, and then that's just what they believe. I just get a job.
Touch grass.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
All right, so actually, just on that, right? Because I did want to definitely talk about this before we finish up the podcast. You recently did the best thing ever for your mental health and took a break from social media for how long was it?
6 months. Well, it was like 5.5 months, but I rounded up to 6 because it looks better on the ground.
Yeah, for sure. But anyway, what kind of motivated you to do that?
So I think for a considerable period of time leading up to that, I had been cutting back my social media usage. So I started to notice that, like, if I use my phone first thing in the morning, I would just have like this not nice feeling going throughout the day. I would just have this kind of like anxiety, kind of just background noise going throughout my day when the first thing that I did was roll over and go on my phone. And I didn't like that. And then I was like, okay, let me try not go on my phone in the first like 10 minutes of when I wake up. So I'll get up and I'll like journal and I'll write my plan for the day ahead. And I'll get all the thoughts and ideas because I feel clearest in the morning when I haven't used my phone. So let me try avail of that period of time where I have the most clarity and at least set my intentions for the day. Because I'd find, like, say the night before, if I knew I had to do XYZ thing in the day, you go on your phone, you see 100 different things on Instagram that have like taken your attention and placed it in a bunch of different directions. You go and brush your teeth, but you're still thinking about this thing. You go having a shower and you're still thinking about this thing that you saw immediately on your phone. And it's usually something dramatic. There's some horrible thing going on somewhere in the world, or there's like some person that you see that's incredibly jacked and strong, and like there's just thoughts buzzing around my mind all the time from whatever I've seen. So let me just put that to the side. Let me try set my intentions for the day, the things that I've got to do, and at least then, if I get distracted throughout the day, I can refer back to this to-do list or like whatever intentions I had set out. So I was doing that, and I was finding that to be really beneficial. So I was like, this is great. I'm never going to go on my phone like first thing in the morning. And gradually I started delaying that time that I would go onto it like longer and longer and longer, because I was noticing I can get like so much high quality work done when I haven't exposed myself to that world. It's like I'm in a little cocoon. It's like I'm operating in this like different dimension before the world has got at me yet. So let me extend that longer. So then it would be like I wouldn't go on my phone until midday. And I was like, this is beautiful. I get like a nice 3-4 hour block of work done that is like such high quality, and I'm really enjoying this. Let me continue this. So then it was get to the stage where I would do that, but then I'd get to the gym and then I'd be doing my sets, but I'd open up Instagram then. And as soon as you open it up, it just like it hooks you, it gets its claws into you. And then I'd find like I accidentally took 10 minutes rest between a set. And I'm like, fuck, this is like derailed my session. Or what I would be really guilty of is I'd do my top set, I'd download it from my camera and I'd post it on my story. And then it's 15 minutes before I've done my first back off. And I'm like, okay, I can't keep doing this. And then as soon as you posted it, then I'm checking the post every fucking 1 minute to see like the engagement that it's getting. Yeah. So then I was doing that and I was like, okay, this needs to stop. I'm not going to go on my phone until after I'm done in the gym. So then I would do that. And I'm like, this is amazing. This, like, these few hours before I've gone on my phone are like, this is paradise. This is bliss. I want this to last as long as possible. So then coming back from that Euros competition, I made my post for like to recap European Championships. I had some things happen like personal life, and I just got into a stage where I was like, I didn't open Instagram for like a full day. I just did my work and got to the end of the day and I was like, I haven't even checked this whatsoever. This has been beautiful. Let me just do this again tomorrow. Same thing. I delayed it as long as possible, got to after the gym. I didn't have anything exciting happening training wise that would be incentive to post. So I was like, I don't have a reason to go on Instagram. I don't have a post to make. I'd made my comp recaps and everything. I've nothing to put up. So I'm just not going to use Instagram today either. And then I moved on to the third day and I was like, yeah, it's been like 2 days. I haven't even opened the app. What's going on? I'm like, this is amazing. Let me see how long I can do this. And then a week has gone by and I haven't even clicked into the app at all. And then it started to be like gamified a little bit to be, how long can I actually do this? Because this has been so fun. I'm like, this has been like the most productive work week that I've ever had. I feel so locked in, so dialed in. It feels so nice to not have like these things competing for my attention and distracting me and drawing me in different directions. So then it got to the stage where it's 2-3 months in and I'm still getting like coaching applications and stuff like that, which was the biggest reason that I would feel compelled to use the apps of like, this is my business. If I want to be able to continue to like make a living, I need to be posting content consistently so that people will sign up. But thankfully it got to a stage where there was enough like word of mouth that was taking care of itself. So I was like, I have no need to use these apps whatsoever. I don't need to make content. Like, the business is taking care of itself. Let me just keep running with this. I'm like, I then started reading. I was like, replaced all the time that I would like mindlessly scroll with reading. Oh man, like I used to be so bad for it where I'd like walk up the stairs to get something, say, from my room. And why walk up the stairs with no stimulation when you could walk up the stairs looking at your Instagram feed? And then I would get upstairs, scroll for like 2-3 minutes, walk back downstairs, and then go, fuck, I was meant to get something upstairs, and then go back up again. And sometimes I'd forget twice what I actually came up to get. And I was like, this is not okay. Like, I can't believe that this is happening. I'm not in control of myself. It's like this little machine is controlling me. And I was like, when I was first trying to delay the scroll, I would find myself so often like just going to pick up my phone mindlessly, like not something that I was conscious or aware of. It was just this ingrained habit. So once I kicked that after like the first like week or so, there was just no compulsion to go for it at all. It was like, once you've seen the light, like there was no desire to keep engaging with that. And then it got to a stage where you're like 4 months in, 5 months in, applications and stuff did start drying up. And I was like, fuck. I guess if I do want to keep growing the business, I do got to get back and start engaging with this again. So I was like, I don't want to, though. I really, really, really do not want to. I want to drag this out for as long as I possibly can, not engaging with this. And then it got to the stage where I'd read so many books that I was like, I have so many ideas that I think are valuable that I actually want to share. I kind of want to get back to it so that I can post these. Also, at the same time, since I had been cutting, I was like, when I get down to 30 kilos body weight loss, then I'll go back on and then I'll post.
Hello.
Because I want it to be like a big transformation kind of thing. And then I'd lost 30 kilos. I had so many ideas. The like business side of things I wanted to continue to push and progress. So I was like, okay, fuck it. It is time. It's time. Let me get back to posting. Let me come back. And I did. And honestly, since coming back, it's like all the good work that I'd done for those 6 months, like all the mental clarity that I had, up in flames, gone. The habits come back so quick. It's so addictive. You are fighting these genius nerd fucking engineers they know exactly how to get you. They know how to get you. They know you better than you know yourself. They're using you against you. They're using your own mind against yourself. So I found that like instantly when I started going back to posting. What I'm like bad for is checking engagement of the posts. And one of the biggest sources of stress for me, one of them was like comparison. I used to fall into that a lot. Like other people, whether it's like physique or strength or like monetary, financial success, so on, like comparing myself to that and that kind of stress in the background, that would weigh on me. But what has been like taking up a lot of headspace, or what I find maybe like most problematic, is when I post, trying to detach my self-worth from how posts perform, because it feels as though it's a direct reflection of me. It's like, if people don't like this and they don't engage with it, they don't like me, they don't like my ideas, they think I suck, they think I'm a fucking idiot. Like those that negative like thought spiral, which isn't the case. It's entirely created on myself. And I know, because I've been creating content for so long, that like there's so many variables at play that you're not necessarily in control of. Like you could make banger content, but it's the time of the day that it goes up, the first pool that the algorithm shows it to. People are busy and they scroll past it. The post is dead in the water before it had a chance. Stuff like that. So it's not necessarily the quality or the value of the information. Going on pages that have like 500,000 followers, 1 million followers, and they're posting videos. One of the big things, I don't know if you've noticed this, reels are doing shit lately.
Yeah, terrible. Yeah.
Carousels
Almost
are
not worth
popping off.
posting them. Yeah.
Man, I got to a stage where I was like, I started even like recording talking videos because I was like, I just want to get comfortable doing this, and they would just perform so bad. I was like, there is no point going through the effort and taking the time out of my day to make these, because they're not going to get seen. And then I would go on pages of people who have 1 million followers, and they would post a carousel, and the carousel might get like 5,000 likes. And then they would post a reel, so they'd have like carousel reel, carousel reel, carousel reel. A reel would get like 150 likes. I'm going, how the fuck does someone have 1 million followers and the reels get 150 likes? And consistently, carousels getting 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,000. A reel 200. So for whatever reason, like the platform is like deprioritizing video content. I think people are maybe burnt out from video content. Like it just takes a while to consume it. Like if you're out and about, you'd have to listen with the sound on, even if there is subtitles. People are they're desensitized to seeing like a talking head video format. So I was like, okay, I could put so much effort into it and it could be really valuable and worthwhile information, but just because it doesn't suit the platform or whatever is doing well on the platform at the moment, it would be unfair for me to tie or associate my self-worth to how individual posts perform. But I still find it so hard to detach from that, because I want to provide value. I want to try help as many people as I can, but it also takes a lot of time and effort and energy, and it's demotivating, demoralizing when you do, and it like you don't get almost any return, or you don't know the impact that you're having. Because that's what I was saying to you. Like, you're someone who your content has been so influential for myself, but until I say that to you, you don't know. Like, you could be making posts that someone is taking a ton of value, and an idea has a knock-on effect and something in their life, and you have no idea. You actually have no idea until you have those conversations. So that's something that I definitely struggle with, and on a daily basis, it's something that I'm trying to like work around, to be able to detach that self-worth that I tie to content creation, because I do want to put out as much stuff as I can that will be beneficial or insightful or valuable to other people. Like that's the essence of what I want to do. I want to try help people. I have spent so much time and I have so many experiences and insights into like all this shit around health and fitness. Like, I want to be able to try impart that and make someone else's life like that little bit better, an idea that they could put in place and make some sort of positive change. But it's like, it's difficult. It's a big, vague, ambiguous goal or stress or pressure to put on yourself. But yeah, I have been very much consumed by that since coming back to social media. So I haven't found the trick to knock that one on the head, but that's the journey. But
yeah, I can definitely resonate with all that, because it is very easy to get into get obsessed with like numbers, and also like have those numbers like affect you like disproportionately. Because like, yeah, you know yourself, like you can put a lot, especially talking videos, if you want to make them engaging, like you put a lot of effort into them and then you post it up and like it gets like seen by like nobody. And like one thing that I fucking hate, and I'm a fucker for this, but like I will write out a caption, and then inevitably I won't put that through like Grammarly or ChatGPT to like correct the grammar or the typos, and there will be a word missing from a sentence that would be pivotal to that sentence making sense, and I post it, right? And like, people realistically are not going to watch or read the caption anyway, but they're like, oh, fuck, somebody's going to see that and think I'm a fucking dyslexic retard.
An idiot.
I'm an idiot. And then I go to edit it, and then once you edit the post, thanks it. Like, it's just like, you may as well just have not made the post at all.
Yeah.
So like that happens from time to time. But yeah, like, you know how much time you can put into like making a video, and then of course, fuck all, people see it and you're like, was there any point there? And like, I've very much reframed my mindset around all that stuff, because I've been posting for so long now, and my mindset around is like, the people who I want to see it are going to see it because they're engaged with my content regardless. The people who are realistically never going to become a customer to my business, they're not going to
Yeah,
see it, and I don't care, right?
that's fine.
Like that's fine. Like, could they potentially be motivated by seeing a post I put up? Maybe, but at the same time, you know, if 100 people like a post, and that was 100 people rushing out to you to get coaching off you, you'd be grand. Close
Yeah,
close
yeah,
doors. No more clients for me.
yeah,
Whereas I'm hiring another coach, and that's like the
yeah.
way I've tried to frame it. Is like, okay, are the people that I want to see this
To see
seeing
it,
it,
seeing it.
and then also like, do I feel happy with this piece of content, right? Because I think that's something that I've, I like I make a few clips of like a YouTube video, and it'll just be like, oh, grand, I got 5 clips there to just throw up, and they're kind of shit, they're kind of shit, but you're just like, if I post every day, at least I'm keeping
Yeah,
consistent there.
that'll be good.
If you're posting 5 pieces of shit content, it's just still shit content, and it doesn't really kind of hit. Like, if I'm sitting there watching that, I'm like, it's kind of shite, isn't it? Somebody else is gonna watch that, I'm like, what the fuck is this guy going on about? So like, I've more and more been just trying to make content that just feels good to me, and I feel that I would find useful, or even it could just be something that's like a simulate from a conversation with a client. You see a couple of teams that pop
Yeah,
up
that's a big
in a
one.
week with check-ins, and you always have the same kind of teams pop up over and over again. And I think, like, obviously we're at certain stages of our journey, right? Like, we'd be like advanced, for lack of a better term,
Yeah.
for where we are in our development. And when you're at that stage, you forget you're thinking about problems that you have that
Yeah,
don't hit with your clients. And
yeah,
then when you are actually talking to somebody in general population who's just really going to get in the gym, trying to be consistent, or with a client who's not quite out your journey, you're like, oh, the questions I have, or the things I'm like frying my brain with,
yeah,
don't matter, like, relative to what I could be making a simple piece of content with this. Because you just think I'm past writing about protein intakes, or how to show up for yourself at the weekend, all this kind of stuff. But it's relevant to somebody,
yeah.
and
Yeah, that's a
yeah,
massive one that I have to bring myself back to as well. That like curse of knowledge. Like when you know something and it becomes normalized for you, you almost forget that this is new or insightful or valuable information for like other people. You forget what it's like to not know that information. And it's easy to be out of sync or out of touch with that. Until you have those conversations with someone in the gym or a new client, someone who you haven't been working with, because your existing clients who you've been working with for months, they've started to ingrain the process. They know this stuff now too. So you think everyone knows it because the circle that you surround yourself with, they know it. It's normal for them. That's one that I always have to come back to, because when I was making content before, I was like, everyone knows this stuff already. This isn't new or useful or insightful information. And in my brain, I'd be thinking of like my peers. So like 5 or 6 other people who are coaches. I'm like, yeah, it's not for them though. You're not like making this post for the other coaches that you're friends with. It's for the people who don't know it. So that's a really valuable idea that I need to keep coming back to. And there was another one. There's another idea. It's gone. It'll come back when we've moved far beyond.
it's also why these mediums are really helpful too, because I am not somebody who would do well on Instagram from a short and snappy real point of view. I am long-winded. I can't help but not be long-winded. I have just too much of a trouble of like being direct to the point. I like to talk about nuance, and
You
that just
like,
does
man, you
not
like to
work.
dance around it. You like to
Yeah.
tease it a little bit. Like,
Shane Storey likes to tell a story,
yeah, like
Um,
to fucking take it around and then you have to land the plane eventually. Yeah.
but like
That's
yeah, Instagram
that
doesn't do out nuance.
yeah. So
Go
that's
on.
something that I struggled with, say, when I was trying those talking videos, where it's like the first fucking 3 seconds need to be so hooking. Like, I don't talk like that. And sure, I could learn to talk like that, and that was one of the issues that I was having. I was like, yeah, fuck it, okay, it's a skill. I can learn to be good at the skill, but I don't like it. It doesn't feel good. The other point came back to me now, the one that I had in my head. But I just don't like doing that. So I was kicking around the idea of just doing like long form, almost like solo podcasts, where I'll just flick on the camera and talk for like 5-10 minutes and post that on YouTube, which I think at the same time, and this is going to tie into my point, I don't know if that's going to get a ton of great engagement. Like, I don't know if people are looking for that, like slightly more long-winded, nuanced takes and perspectives. But if it feels good for me, if it aligns with my values, like you were saying, if it feels good for me that I think this is good or insightful or important content, that's perfect. So if I post those videos and it might not be the most like hyper edited Mr. Beast friggin' like super mega ADHD edit like scripted content, if it still has like value and is insightful and I believe it is, then I can take comfort in that and post that and be happy and confident with it. So I think that's an avenue that I want to go down, where just recording slightly longer form talking content where I can explore those ideas. Yeah.
Do you know who Ryan Doris is?
I feel like
The
I've
Natty
heard the
Pro.
name, but
The
no,
Natty Pro is his name on Instagram. So
yeah.
I've had him on the podcast, and he used to make a lot of videos like that back in the day.
Yeah.
But like he'd record like 5-10 minute video on just like something to do with psychology and how he thinks about that related to his lifting. Like something mindset related, right? I'd really recommend you go and watch it, because like some of those videos were some like of the kind of I don't know, like game changing videos I watched back in the day.
Formative.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in my mindset towards training, towards nutrition, towards like delaying gratification, and like the people who need to see it will see it. And again, that's all it comes down to, because like again, like Ryan is not like Ryan like obviously went through like a kind of social media arc, like a lot of people do, right? They're like really popular at the time, and then he like took his foot off the gas. He didn't want to be involved in that kind of space anymore. But a lot of people who would have, I know, who have kind of grown up with, know him from that period of time. Again, fucking like 10 years later, I asked him to come on my podcast, and I was looking forward to having a conversation with him for so long. But because I actually started this medium, I could have those conversations. And that's, again, making content that feels good to you. And like, it's all kind of circular in that kind of sense,
Ties back into that being unbalanced for a period of time too. Because say for myself, like when I first like grew like a following of sorts, it was on TikTok, and I was posting 3 times a day for 6 months. I was going fucking hard on that. And that is where I think I went from 1,000 up to 35,000 on TikTok in the space of 6 months. And that was like a super unbalanced time. Like those days, I was like all day figuring out how, like, what can I post? I was creating a system of like, okay, say one informative post, one more like entertaining post, and then just one more like lifestyle kind of general post. And then I would have that system, and I would post one of those every single day. It was like information on powerlifting, technique tips, the rules of powerlifting, yada yada yada. But it actually started because I was offering online coaching. Posted that I was offering online coaching, as 0 applications, nada, nothing. And I was like, okay, I need more people to even see that I offer this. How can I do that? I just need a bigger following and pool of people that are going to see me. So let me do this like hyper intense period of content creation. Grew up to whatever. I was maybe like 15,000 by the time that I posted again that I was doing a new intake of coaching clients, and there was something like 50 applications. Oh my god! So then I was like, this works. Let me keep doing this, and that was that like 6-month period. But then I started taking on a bunch of clients, and I was not having the time to post 3 videos a day, and that petered off, and like just kind of I couldn't dedicate that amount of time to it anymore. But because of that unbalanced period, I was able to kind of open doors that wouldn't have been available otherwise. So yeah, that kind of idea of going hyper intense on something for a period of time that is not going to be sustainable necessarily, but may set you up well for down the line.
You're laying the foundations, and that's very important. I think that's also something that a lot of people do have to do when they're trying to establish themselves in like online coaching. Like, did you work as a personal trainer, like in person? Yeah,
for
so like
2 years.
So like obviously like that is like like that was important for me for establishing like it's like a client base early on online, but I'd already been posting like every single day. Like at the time, you know, with Instagram, we didn't need to like post like fucking multiple times a day. Just like you put up a picture with a caption, a good caption. That's all I need to do, baby. That's like that's what Instagram used to be. It'd be so simple.
Yeah.
But you know, I just did that for a period of time and grew decent following. Now my follower count has been fairly static for like the last year, probably 2 years. But I don't care, you know, because at the same time my coaching business is growing, so I'm like,
yeah. What is the variable that we're most
that's the number
concerned
that matters the most.
with? Yeah, 100%.
Andrew, I've very much enjoyed our conversation today.
As have I.
But I think I will let you go and enjoy the rest of your day. I need to actually eat my next meal. But yeah, look, is there any kind of words of wisdom that you'd like to impart on the audience before we sign off, relate to anything you talked
Any
about
words
today?
of wisdom? Just do your best, be happy, see the beauty in the world, and everything will be all right. I think that's the wisdom that I got.
That's as good as wisdom as you're going to hear. Where can people find you in regards to social media platforms?
Instagram, Andrew Blackwood _, TikTok, Andrew _Blackwood, YouTube, Andrew Blackwood, the Two Andrews podcast on YouTube and Spotify. I think that's everything. Southside Gym, you can find me there. That's where I am 6 days a week.
All right. Yeah, perfect. Look, I'll leave all that in the show notes. And yeah, if you have enjoyed our conversation today, make sure to go over and give Andrew a follow. Go over and give his podcast a follow. It's a lot of lighthearted fun like we've had today, and some insightful stories as well. And yeah, obviously, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to give it a rating and review on the podcast platform you're listening on. And we will catch you in the next one.